All right, wizards. Another thing that we're going to talk about this week is what are known as type 1 and type 2 errors. Type 2 errors, excuse me. So type 1 errors and type 2 errors occur in hypothesis tests. When you make a decision, that's the wrong decision. So here's how this works. I like to make a chart that is kind of like this, a two-way table. And along the top is what is really true, though you don't know this. I mean, you don't know it's really true. You may find out after the fact that it's true. But going into your hypothesis test, you don't know it's true. And then along this side, these are the decisions that you make. So you think that HO is true, which means you fail to reject. Or you think that HA is true, which is when you reject HO. So when you fail to reject or reject are the decisions you make, and maybe those are errors. So if HO is really true, but you fail to reject HO, you have not made an error at all. That was a good decision. However, if HO is really true and you rejected HO in favor of the alternate hypothesis, that was an error, though you didn't know it was an error at the time. But this is called a type 1 error. Type 1 errors can only occur when you reject. So if you would remember that, this will help you to remember type 1 and type 2. If you reject the null hypothesis, you might have made a type 1 error. So let's go to the other column. Suppose what is really true is the alternate hypothesis. You don't know that going in, but the alternate is true. And you failed to reject the null hypothesis. You thought that HO was true. That's an error on your part, though you didn't know it at the time. This is known as a type 2 error. That is known as a type 2 error. And then the last box, if HA is true and you rejected HO because you thought HA was true, that's a good decision. That's a good decision. So typically what we'd like to do is we would like to try to reduce all of our errors. And one of the things that we'll try to do this week is to talk about ways to reduce those errors. Going in, sometimes this is called our alpha level, a type 1 error. So that is whenever you're saying an alpha level is 5%, what you're saying is that there's a 5% chance that I would reject the null hypothesis incorrectly. Sometimes a type 1 error is called a false positive. And a type 2 error is called a false negative. When a fire alarm goes off and there is no fire, that's a false positive. Here's some other examples. Some other examples that we can kind of work with. So for example, my null hypothesis is adding water does not make toothpaste more effective in fighting cavities. So a type 1 error would be thinking that adding water makes toothpaste more effective when it really doesn't. And a type 2 error would be thinking that toothpaste or adding water to toothpaste doesn't make it more effective fighting cavities when it actually does. Here's another null hypothesis. Adding fluoride to toothpaste has no effect on cavities. So a type 1 error is thinking that fluoride works when it really doesn't work. This is my alternate hypothesis. And this is my null hypothesis, because the null is that it has no effect on cavities. A type 2 error is thinking that fluoride doesn't work. In other words, you fail to reject HO when actually it does work. So if you could imagine a researcher researching cavities making a type 2 error, In other words, they would not market fluoride when fluoride actually would work. Here's another example of inventory control in type 1 and type 2 errors, another example. So an automated inventory control system that rejects high quality goods of a consignment commits a type 1 error. So our null hypothesis in this situation is that a package that comes to us is of high quality, and we would like to pass that along, or we'd like to accept that package. A type 1 error is when the machine thinks that the package is not a high quality package when actually it was a high quality package. So you would reject perfectly good packages. A type 2 error is when you think a package is high quality. In other words, you fail to reject when it's not high quality. So what you're doing in this case is you're accepting actually low quality goods. In this one, you're letting the high quality goods get away. In this one, you're accepting low quality goods. Another common case or situations for type 1 and type 2 errors are in spam filtering. So the null hypothesis with spam filtering is that this email that I received is not spam. So a type 1 error is when you think the email is spam, so that email gets sent to your spam folder, but it's actually not spam. That would be a type 1 error. A type 2 error is when you receive spam in your inbox. You got a spam email in your inbox. Your spam filter thought it was not spam. It believed in HO when actually it was spam. So one of the things we'll work on is trying to identify type 1 and type 2 errors. For the AP test, you'll need to kind of talk about these in context. Again, if you just remember, type 1 errors can only occur when you reject a null hypothesis. If you remember that, then you can easily figure out when a type 2 error occurs. So those are type 1 and type 2 errors. Hope this has been helpful.